We want to thank Tony Sirianni and Advisor Hub for this privilege for us to be able to have conversation with you today. My name again is Trish Moll. As of yesterday now, I'm the Regional Vice President, leading and partnering the 1,400 independent advisors in the central part of the United States. I've been in the industry and with Ameriprise for 31 years, starting as an advisor the old-fashioned way, cold calling, networking, doing workshops at companies. I'm also a CFP.
Similar to Trish, well, not similar to Trish, my name's Brian Mora. That's a totally different name, right? Similar to Trish, I'm a Regional Vice President with Ameriprise Financial, supporting our advisors in our W-2 branch network model. I'm a certified financial planner, began my career with the firm as an advisor. I've been with the company for 21 years, and I've actually split my time in leadership with the company in our independent model and in our W-2 branch model. I think about the last presentation we heard, which was fantastic. I don't know if the had speakers in the room, that was great. When you look at Ameriprise Financial as an organization, we have an army of financial advisors, 10,000 advisors nationwide, split between 3 distinct business models. And we as a firm commission a substantial amount of research, both internally from our 2.5 million clients, and then externally from a number of the reporting agencies that we all talk about, Cerulli, Moss Adams, McKinsey, et cetera. And what Trish and I have the distinct privilege over the next 15 or 20 minutes to talk to you about are 5 trends that we see in the industry right now. Some of them will be repetitive, in fact, to what you've heard already during the day, but it'll be with our lens and a bit of our spin to that. But most importantly, we want to talk about how we're trying to help advisors navigate those trends and capitalize on the opportunity for those trends. Because I think what advisors look for more than anything, especially from a large organization, is they look to us for partnership on how to navigate these trends and how to make sure they can be successful over the next 5, 10, 15 years. Let's jump right into it. The first one that we see is an aging advisor population. Cerulli estimates that over the next 10 years, 110,000 financial advisors will make the option and choice to retire and exit the business. That's approximately 1/3 of the current advisor force. Now, 21 years ago, when I sat for the Series 7, there were approximately 25,000 to 30,000 people a year entering our industry, taking a Series 7 and joining a firm like ours, or many in the room that are represented. Today, the number of folks taking the licensing exams are under 5,000. And many of them are not, in fact, sitting for those exams with the purpose of becoming a financial advisor. They work in a corporate office as part of a leadership team, as part of an operations team. So we're at this interesting crossroads in that it's the largest wealth generation in the United States, money moving, and at the same time, we have to solve in this room, and by extension, the thousands of people listening online, we have to help advisors and firms solve for new entrants to the business and all the fluctuation that will take place as these 110,000 advisors take that opportunity to exit and retire.
Great. The second trend we would talk about is some of the disruptors. We've named all of them here today, but for 18 years, my advisory office sat across the street from the largest mall in the United States. At the time, it was Woodfield Mall. This week, they announced that Sears Roebuck, the largest store in the United States at that mall, has now closed. That's a disruptor that we all feel in e-commerce. Also, along with that, I lived in a condominium in downtown Chicago for 18 years. One of my criteria in buying that condo was that it had a cab light outside so that 24/7 I could walk out and get transportation. We all know what rideshare apps have done to that. But then you think about our industry and you think about ESG, you think about cryptocurrency. What we're doing is asking the question is we all have a different opinion on how we might solve this, but as an industry, how do we come together knowing these disruptors are here and how we can collaborate with technology and leverage all the items that we have in the marketplace to serve the client?
The next thing I think advisors are looking for help navigating is a reshaping regulatory component in our industry. There's certainly a fiduciary stance that exists in this room and in our industry at this juncture, whether it was DOL a few years ago, currently Reg BI, and each of the individual states, of course, are taking their own fiduciary stance, and as CFPs, we've long been guided by a fiduciary stance. You also see the regulators moving to more enforcement actions and inspecting in a more detailed way. And last but not least, they're using big data. So they have an opportunity to show up for an inspection, whether it's to an individual office, to a branch, to a firm, already having identified trends and already having identified risks through the use of big data. Advisors and broker-dealers alike are going to need support and help to navigate the evolving and reshaping regulatory landscape.
Right. And number three, we've all talked about this today already as well. It's this definition of higher client expectations. But what we haven't done specifically is named what are those expectations. So we did some research, both internally and externally, asking clients what it is that's really important to them. So we're going to walk through what we know are those 4 expectations that we know clients are asking no matter what channel you're in.
I'm going to tackle the first 2. So the first client expectation as we move forward is a move towards goal-based advice. I read a recent study from McKinsey that said in the next 10 years, north of 80% of advisors will be delivering a goal-based advice approach to their clients. We were a pioneer in financial planning in the 70s and have long since had the most percentage of financial advisors that are certified financial planners in the industry. So this is not new space for us, but it is somewhat new space to see firms that have long approached clients from a wealth management perspective exclusively talking about financial planning or goal-based advice. The second component is around the products and services that clients own. Naturally, in the future, clients are still going to own products and services, but what they will demand in the future is to know that the products and services that an advisor has selected for them are uniquely picked and tailored and customized to the goals that they're working to achieve, and that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Great. The number 3 expectation is really around this digital experience. Our clients want access to their funds 24/7, and no longer do they expect their advisor to complete simple transactions for them. So how do we shift the mindset of some of our advisors that believe that can offer as a service model? It's really about that collaboration with the digital world and how we can work with it together and serve that client in a premium experience. The 4th expectation is really around this elevated client service model. J.D. Powers did a study where polling clients, 8 out of 10 of them prefer quarterly contact. They want that proactive reach. And it's all clients, not just the top clients. And what we've also known through our research is that when that contact goes down to 3 times a year, client retention drops off precipitously. So really building those 4 together is essential.
And connected to that, building in response time in every single advisor's practice. You think about the availability. I would suspect if we did a poll just in this room of about 100 people, which was our max capacity at the University Club due to COVID protocol, I would suspect that almost every one of you, if not every one of you, is carrying a cell phone, which means you're all reachable to all lines of your life, business, personal, et cetera. We've also seen, connected to what Trish just talked about, that response time demands from clients are dropping from get back to me within a day or 2 to get back to me within the same day to, in fact, I expect response within now measured in hours, 4 to 6 hours of response time. Those 4 items that Trish and I just covered as far as what clients are expecting today, we as a firm put a stake in the ground about 3 years ago and began to build out the resources to help our advisors capitalize and deliver on goal-based advice, customized approach to products and services, a compelling digital experience, and a really great referable service model. Guess what we found when advisors began to implement this wholesale across the practice? Number 1, clients expressed more satisfaction. They said that the expectations that they had and the satisfaction with those were on the rise. Advisors cited having an easier time elevating the client experience and meeting the demands that clients were expecting, and advisor productivity grew. And as you would probably expect, we didn't have every single advisor jump to implement all 4 of those things right away. So it gave us a really interesting ability inside of our own firm to be able to study what happened when advisors implemented this and what happened when advisors didn't. Trish?
Great. And that brings us to our 5th trend that we want to talk about and dig a little bit deeper. And it's this extreme competition for talent. Some have talked about it as a war for talent. 4.4 million individuals quit their job in September alone. And we know that at a point in our industry where advisors, if you talk to any of them, are saying they're having capacity limits. We've got record net flows, client higher expectations, and we know this demand for talent is never more present. So as you think about that, we do something called elite growth forums. And just last month, there were 11 top women advisors that came in and had a CEO roundtable. The average gross revenue in the business, in the room was 3.7 million in gross. And their job over that day and a half was to spend time solving how do we consider what is going on right now, also known as the Great Resignation. We've all known the Great Depression. We've lived through the Great Recession. Now we are living through the Great Resignation. So as they thought about this and trying to solve together as CEOs leading businesses, we didn't talk about practitioner needs. We talked about leading the business and what they're going to do to double their business over the next 5 years. And it came down to a few things that they needed to do around attracting talent, but also retaining talent. The first was culture. Understanding and articulating right out of the gates what it meant to be on each of their teams. Understanding values and having values that were aligned, but having it written down, having it felt by every single team member when they were in that process of attracting talent also led to retention. We had talked about recruiting through hybrid and flexible work arrangements, being okay if somebody was going to be remote in case there was talent in another part of the industry. So many of us got used to sitting side by side with our teammates. We have to be open to these flexible work arrangements. We talked about having time off for wellness, having time off to go volunteer. But most importantly, we sat and talked about career development and career pathing. Now, I got started in the business by hunting and killing what I found, right? But if we look at that same analogy, we also used to go hunt for our food. Now we go to the grocery store, and I'd even submit it's now Uber Eats that deliver us to the couch. Our lives evolve, and our industry has evolved. So expecting new talent to go out and hunt and kill like we did to bring in clients is potentially a failing proposition. So what we talked about in career pathing is how do we get people started as a novice advisor? How do they then sit second chair? How do they sit next to the lead advisor, get mentored, so they have the ability to learn with an existing book of business the right way to do it? Then moving into the client-facing service model themselves, and then ultimately, do they see a path to ownership? Do they see that before they have to take it all on? And most importantly, having it documented, having the talent being able to see how it can come to fruition. Many of us got started in the business with a lot of faith, and we did it on a wing and a prayer. Today's competition and talent out there is demanding more, and we need to be able to meet those demands.
You know, we're seeing a lot of the similar things in the branch network of our firm. I think about the last presentation, which in fact was entitled, Do All Roads Lead to Independence? There's a complete reshaping and reforming of the W-2 branch network in our industry right now, at least at our company, that looks tremendously more independent and entrepreneurial, examining things like where do people work, when do they work, how do they work, especially after the last year plus or even two years now almost of a COVID environment. Many similar things that Trish talked about, paid time off to volunteer in the community, flex time for work, and things like that. One of the things that I think we as an industry have an enormous responsibility and move towards is how to determine and figure out greater diversity and inclusion within this industry and at our firm in particular. So much work has already been done in the last recent years, but so much more is still needed to be done. I'm talking about including more advisors, women in the advisor community, more people of color, and more underrepresented groups like LGBTQA. When you think about the women specifically, women represent today $14 trillion of household assets, and yet in our industry, they only represent 18% of the advisor workforce. At our company, we have 20% of our advisors that are represented as women, but that's still far too few given how much money is changing hands and already in command of women in the United States. The future of a financial services practice and firm will look more like the United States. It will have more people of color, it will be more diverse with women, and more people that are in underrepresented groups today. The question is, how do we do it? The first thing I would submit is that we need coalitions of those groups of people to give feedback to organizations on what recruiting should look like. How do we recruit people into the industry, not just from firm to firm, but new to industry that are in those three groups? And what does the development look like? Mentorship is critical, leadership, career pathing. Trish and I are hugely of the belief that if the field leadership teams look more like the United States, so too can the advisor force and population.
So with that, we've gone through many of these different industry trends. We don't have all the answers, but we're certainly looking and working hard to seek them as our industry evolves. The thing I would leave you with is about 15 years ago, I sat in a conference and there was a leader on stage that said someday we would watch TV on our phone. It was hard to believe that at the time, but as we all know, that's a daily occurrence for many individuals. What I would say is that someday we will all vacation in space or on the moon. Our industry needs to be able to understand and be innovative and serve the clients so that they can afford it. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.